I have a mind, and so I have emotions. You have a mind,
Yeah.
so you have emotion. And so me recognizing that you have emotions means I have empathy towards you.
Hello and welcome to Up Close and Personal Season 2 here at InvokED Studios, where we dive deep into the heart of leadership, collective action, and education equity. I'm your host, Avran Chittadam. Our guest today is Ms. Reshma Piramal. She's the head of operations at Sea Learning India. She's passionate about preserving India's sensitive habitat for almost 2 decades. She loves tigers and is immersed in Dharma practice for a number of years and wishes to share its application to young people to empower them. Reshma, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
How are you feeling?
I'm feeling good. Only thing is I'm feeling more thrilled that you call me Miss when I'm actually a Ms. But okay.
I didn't miss. I said MISS.
No, I'm not a Miss.
All right. We talked about where you show your love for tiger and wildlife. Was there a particular conservation movement that you truly resonate with? Are you really happy that this is an iconic moment? Do you have a favorite moment of tiger conservation, or any wildlife conservation for that matter?
I think like most people, some of us recognize it, others may not. Being out in nature is exceptionally rewarding, restorative. And for me personally, when I spent time in the forest, and there was the first time I actually saw the tiger, is when I started sobbing and crying, because I just said, my God, what a majestic beast, what a spectacular ecosystem that is so interdependent. And I said, what are we doing? Why are they having to struggle and fight for their existence? And that kind of commitment immediately, I told my husband at that time, I said, we've got to do something about this. And that's how Conservation Wildlands was born.
What do you think we can learn about wildlife? We'll learn about leadership from wildlife. Is there a particular aspect that we think humans should also should be resonating, should be practicing that, and we should be learning that from the wildlife?
I think that's a very good question. I think as a species, we always talk about survival of the fittest. It's not survival of the fittest. In fact, that's, Darwin has been misquoted. It was about the human species survived because they collaborated, because they worked together.
Right.
And those communities that collaborated were the communities that survived. Of course, there were other factors. And I think one of the things that we see through wildlife is that they don't impinge on others. It's a very interdependent system where everyone recognizes that in the food chain or symbiotically, you are dependent on others. They may not have the kind of awareness that we have as intelligent humans, but there is an innate understanding of that system and that respect for that system. So I feel from a perspective of looking at wildlife as a contributor to a certain idea or reseeding for us, what we've forgotten is this idea of collaborative, interdependent understanding that often we forget. We think that we are islands or silos. Really seeing how there are so many that contribute to what we do and our survival. Yeah.
And what is it that got you into CEESEE learning, C learning? What was the one aspect that you were like, I want to be working towards it, I want to be working in this? If you could just explain on that.
So nothing got me into it in the sense that I was very involved with it when it was being created and launched. But because I understood where it comes from, its content from our ancient Indian wisdom traditions of mind training, I saw this as a spectacular tool that was accessible to just about anyone without you having to have a faith, without you having to really, delve deep into trying to find, books or things to read. And because it was articulated for a lay person, and when I say lay person, as you don't have to have a certain expertise, but it spoke to our human and universal needs, the need for well-being, the need for human flourishing. And so it was, I think, that made me recognize how precious it was. And again, I was in the right place, right time. I had a very long relationship with the creators of it. So from that kind of the responsibility of saying, now I want to take that responsibility to make it available to everyone, and that obviously requires organization, so on and so forth, and dissemination, and yeah.
No, I generally wonder how my childhood upbringing or how my education experience would have been different if I was exposed to the concept of seed learning. And I generally, maybe I'll never know, but I generally do hope, wonder that. But what do you think is the future of seed learning? Where do you think the narrative is going? Do you see, with times changing everything, do you see any particular challenges that we'll be facing soon?
So I think this human need has always existed, right? I have a mind, and so I have emotions.
Right.
You have a mind,
Yeah.
so you have emotions.
Yes.
And so me recognizing that you have emotions means I have an empathy towards you, right? And I use this example a lot. This table doesn't have emotions. It
Right.
doesn't have a mind. So if I bring another table next to it, it's not going to feel jealous. If I put this in the storeroom, it's not going to feel jealous, right? And so to refer to your past point, if we grew up where we were made self-aware of how emotions evolve, because we are humans and
Right.
humans are social beings and humans do have emotions. And if we learned how to be able to regulate them, then we could show up as our best selves. So whether we are a child, whether we are an adult, in whatever space we are, I think these skills hold us in good stead. And one of the most important things, apart from recognizing our emotions, is discernment. Why is it that we do what we do? What propels us? So really doing things where we are attentive, where we deploy our attention to where it needs to be, but doing it with a motivation that I'm not only doing it for self, I'm doing it to, for keeping in mind others.
Right.
I think that kind of discernment, that disposition, what we're trying to do is cultivate these traits.
Right.
So these traits were always useful, and they are going to be more useful now in the time of AI, because AI can't code for emotions.
Right. Yeah.
Right? And that's what we need to the fact that we are humans and build on these naturalistic, humanistic skills. That's really going to be the challenge. We're not competing with AI. AI is going to is language and cognitive based, and it will do great with that, but it is not going to be able to replace forgiveness, empathy, pain, all those, tolerance, respect, all the things we need in our world today.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
My final question on the seed learning bit: when you are, working on the model, when you're implementing across, different districts or different states in India, is the approach different from, let's say, North India versus South India? Do you have to take a different approach when you're working, when you're working with the students or teachers? Do you have to take a different approach?
So I'll clarify. I don't work directly with either the government or the teachers. I work with the teachers, or I work with the government because I support capacity building. So if there's an implementing organization, for example, like Mantra4Change or Akanksha Foundation, I will train their people, or I will build capacity within that. When I say I, as in me, the team, and all the other facilitators, to be able to take these skills, because these skills are very operationalizable. And I'm using language that I don't like to use, but it's not at a conceptual level that you go and it's very fuzzy and conceptual. It's like, what does empathy look like in the classroom? What are the classroom practices that show that this is a compassionate classroom? What does empathy look like for you? What does empathy look like? How do you self-regulate? So what I'm trying to say is that we have to be able to adapt. The program is universal, but you adapt for the context, right? So in someone's context, let's say in a certain culture, something is perhaps more acceptable, or certain examples you need to use are more relevant to them. So you speak to them what it is that they have a reference for. So it's about speaking the language of references.
And for my final question, if I could just request you to do one thing, if you could just say a word of hope for the future, for the young audience who are watching, what would it be?
Don't spend so much time on your devices. I would I would say really take that time out to immerse yourself and be awe-stricken by the amazing world that we have the great fortune and gratitude to be part of, and take that time to look around, look at people, listen to people. Because when we are empathetic to ourselves, we begin to also recognize and able to put ourselves in others' shoes. So we need to zoom out a bit and see that in the larger scheme of things, this little blue planet, which is we hold so precious as our home, I mean, the larger scheme of things, it's, what we do is so insignificant. So I would just request everyone to take some time to look inside, and that will give you a whole host of an entire universe is out there. That exploration is something that I would invite everyone to join.
That's such a wonderful and insightful message. And generally, just thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
Your stories, insight, and wisdom, both in this conversation, the conversation we had outside, is generally something I'll take back. And thank you to our audience for tuning in. Stay connected, keep the dialogue going, and we'll see you in the next episode. Thank you.